This is Lou Benninger. It's hot out there. Just take off some clothes and hunker down and turn on the fans if you don't have any air con. So we're sitting out here, and somebody figured out how to get this air conditioner. I don't know whether we did we go around the circuit breaker and we stealing power from PG&E out here today? No. Wikiman says we're legit. We're legit out here. Well, we're back. We're live, and we didn't pre-record this show because we've reconciled, and we can be here at the same time, and we're looking at each other through the glass, wondering what in the world are we going to do for 3 whole hours. There's not hardly anything going on out there. It's just hard times for news, and it's like we're just going to have to make up stuff, talk about fishing stories. You ever hear these talk shows, and they just say the same thing? Even sports talk, they just talk about drinking beer or stupid stuff. Why do they even pay those guys to talk like that? Out here, we got to pay to talk. I was talking to a guy came and was cleaning up these apartments next to my house. They hardly ever keep them clean. I usually have to pick up stuff. The guy came in, really nice guy, and cleaning up, and he was telling me, he said, Lou, I was pulling out I needed an extra hand to do a big job one day. I was pulling out one of these parking lots, and a guy said, I'm desperate to work on the cardboard placard. So he said, I stopped. He said, I need you. He said, oh, I don't want to work. He said, well, why do you have that sign saying, I'm desperate to work? I need work bad. I think it was something like that. I need work bad. And he said, I thought you said you need work bad. And the guy said, no, I don't want to go. And so all you out there that are sympathetic to the panhandlers, just go on and give up. You probably just feel good about paying those taxes to the government that wastes almost all of your taxes and throws them down the sewer. Waste. Oh, yeah, we work our fingers to the bone. We work for government. So, let me read this. I run into these things. Sometimes people send me stuff. We don't have a staff of researchers like some of these syndicated talk show people. So we have to rely on people that operate out of their home and just look up stuff and send it. They think it's interesting to me. So I've got some good stuff recently. In fact, one of the listeners from Gridley, I've never even met him before. Maybe we used to keep track of our listeners, but when it went over 50, we lost our minds and we couldn't keep track of it. It was too much trouble. We don't have time. So anyway, I ran into this called a $50 lesson. I recently asked my friend's little girl what she wanted to be when she grew up. She said she wanted to be president someday. Both of her parents, liberal Democrats, were standing there, so I asked her, if you were president, what would be the first thing you would do? She replied, I'd give food and houses to all the homeless people. Her parents beamed with pride. Wow, what a worthy goal, I told her. But you don't have to wait until you're president to do that. You can come over to my house and mow the lawn, pull the weeds, sweep the yard, and I'll pay you $50. Then I'll take you over to the grocery store where the homeless guy hangs out, and you can give him the $50 to use toward food and a new house. She thought about that for a minute. Then she looked me straight in the eyes and asked, why doesn't the homeless guy come over and do the work for you, and you can just pay him the $50? I said, welcome to the Republican Party. People just have a flat spot on the brain. Democrats, they just think, oh, we need to give all this money to people. And but the money, they want to come out of my pocket. Like I got all these people up and down my street. They're doing illegal activities, selling dope, bringing in crashed cars and doing a chop shop right in the apartment complex at 11th and F. Took the new police chief coming over there and tagging like 9 or 10 cars in just a half block. And the deadline was today, and all but one of them is gone. We had the tweakers out there all last night welding on this car, trying to get it up and going. I thought, man, if they put that much energy back to go to high school, those dudes would have had a job instead of having to have lights and in the middle of the night. You know how when welding, the flashes of light from welding, my whole windows are lighting up all night. Those tweakers are out there just getting it on. We had a guy, my neighbor had to put in he bought one of those $300 or $400 security camera things and attached them to the outside of his house. And he can actually, then it records the action, and you can actually download it onto your cell phone if you like. So he comes out. I was talking to him in front of the house. I pulled up, and he shows me the neighbor just down the street, tweaker, another tweaker. And the guy is out in the middle of the night, 2:30 in the morning, and he didn't wear a mask this time. Before he wore a mask. And he has one, just like the Navy SEALs, you know, they put that little flashlight right in their mouth so they can see what they're doing. So he's out there, and he's stealing the guy's roses at 2:30 in the morning. Now, you got to be goofed up on drugs to be investing your life in trimming other people's rose bushes at 2:30 in the morning with a Navy SEAL flashlight in your mouth like you're doing super undercover work. Don't do drugs. Hey, I want to give a shout out to my friends at Juvenile Hall who've been involved in all kinds of gnarly, illegal activity. So thanks for listening, and hope you learned something from our talk today. So we're going to be here for 3 hours. This is KMYC, 1410 AM. And if you're out there in one of those fringe areas out in the boondocks, and it's a little rough getting the show, like I know at Plumas Lake, which is just, I could almost throw a rock and hit Plumas Lake from here out in East Linda. They have trouble getting us. And I don't know whether it's like a Bermuda Triangle of technology out there, but if you want to go on kmycradio.com, you can click on the Listen Live button, and you should be able to get us live stream. Or if your spouse says, hey, let's go do this, and you can't listen for an hour or two, and you want to listen, you can always go back and catch it at your convenience at One Eye Blind Media on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and go One Eye Blind Media and click on Live with Lou and pick a show if you want. Okay? So if you want to join the Republican Party, like this young little girl, she says she wanted to give money to the homeless and buy a house for the homeless, but she wanted to give somebody else's money, not her own. Everybody always wants somebody else. I have people call me and say, Lou, this is wrong. Why don't you do something about it? Right? They always call me. Why don't you, hey, Lou, did you hear about this? Why don't you do something about it? And I thought, oh, how come everything just flows my way? It's like the Right Out Hospital, or as we say, Adventist Hospital nowadays. I live near the hospital, and so all bad things head to the hospital. If they're not dead at the scene, they all come to the hospital. Siren after siren after siren. People aren't good critical thinkers. They used to say Right Out Hospital. They'd say we ride in and we walk in and we ride out, right? Walk in and we ride out. One guy said one time to me, all my relatives has died here. I said, well, at least they had a final shot at it. You know, like my parents died in a hospital too. It's like, oh, are hospitals killing people? It's just, anyway, life is crazy. And so I hope you enjoyed the show. Since we're live today, it's been a couple weeks since we're live, so you could actually dial and complain or give an attaboy or an attagirl or whatever. 742-5555. That's a 530 area code, 742-5555. It is pro-choice over here, so if we choose to abort the call because you're not convenient or the wrong gender, that's just, hey, that's the way, you know, our congressmen, our senators are all pro-choice, even if they're Republican. They vote for Planned Parenthood. So we don't kill babies out here, but we do kill occasional phone call. If we can't take it on the air, you got the wrong topic, it's inconvenient to my career, cramp my style. I don't want to be inconvenienced, of course. So anyway, But we hope you're doing good. So I'm not going to charge you for this, but I want to warn you that it's going to be very hot today. Now, the county is collecting a lot of taxes to do this, but I'm just going to give you a little pitch, and this is free. This is how easy it is for businesses and radio stations to do something that the county charges you for. So here we go. Drink plenty of water today and wear a hat. If you go out, wear a hat. And if the Mexicans have taught us over the years, wear a long sleeve shirt if you're going to be outside. Don't go short sleeve, wear long sleeve. That keeps you cooler, actually. I learned that from working with my Mexican folks out in farm labor when I was a youngster. They wore long sleeve shirts and hats, and I learned something else. They drank a lot of water. So I'm not charging you for any of this. Yuba County, Sutter County, their public information people will tell you. They'll tell you the temperature. It's going to be 106. So take care, drink a lot of water, and stay inside. Right? Remind me of what my mother said. Wear your coat. Don't get in trouble. Be careful. Right? All the B's. Be this, be that, be something else. Let's see. Okay, so this is amazing. You remember back in the days when everybody was thinking, hey, the reason that minorities, blacks and Mexicans, aren't doing very well is because all the other minorities are doing really well. And the pie is only so big, and so if whites and Asians and other uns are doing good, then they're keeping all these other people down, right? Like holding a person underwater in the pool. So they created these quotas in the schools, in the colleges, and they said it doesn't matter how ignorant or stupid somebody is or low performance on their aptitude tests or their entry exams, we're going to take in a certain number of that flavor of person regardless. And then they kind of give them breaks. Kind of like some schools want a good athlete, so they'll bring in these athletes, give them scholarships, and they put them in the stupid classes. And then they end up, after they finish with them and helping them get win a championship in their school, they end up with a degree in something they can't really use. Some schools used to do that. Don't know whether they do it anymore. So anyway, people have sued schools. I remember when a white guy wanted to go to UC Davis Med School, and he had a top grade, top scores getting in, and they would not allow him in. They chose people of other flavors that had substandard scores. So black economists like Tom Sowell and Walter Williams said that just hurts everybody, because generally people that are allowed into college with poor performances in prep schools, etc., end up, a lot of times they just drop out anyway, or they end up not being a very good whatever they were going to be, occupation, not being very good at it. So now we have Harvard now is taking it a step further, and they are so it says those who weren't able to gain admission to top tier schools like Harvard, some of them think, well, I'm just not smart enough or talented enough to compete with the very best. But little did they know that some universities were routinely rejecting applicants based not on their grade point averages or leadership potential, but their ethnicity. So now we have people that are top performers like Asians that are getting rejected from Harvard because, even though they have the top scores, because maybe, and the excuse is, well, they don't have a good personality. They bring up these other things. So it's just the opposite of what we were trying to accomplish. Now we're eliminating minorities that are overachievers. Did you ever think that you ever had Asians in class that just outperformed you left and right, and you thought, do they have like better DNA than me? Before DNA was around, you think, well, do they have better brains than me? I'll tell you, because I travel in Asia some, and I watch those kids coming and going to school in Vietnam and China. Honestly, they're up and going to school before our kids are even looking for the Captain Crunch or whatever in the morning. They're still bumping around the walls, and our kids are already heading home to sit in front of a computer screen when kids in Vietnam are heading home 5, 6 o'clock at night. They're putting in like 10, 12-hour days over there at that school, and they're going to school on Saturdays. And I don't even know whether they do this summer break stuff. And so I don't, they say that some of these, I was watching some NBA player, he was talking how he would shoot like 500 free throws, 500 in a row, or 500 jump shots. You wonder how those people shoot so well. Honestly, they practiced a lot more than I did when I was in school. I just thought, oh, well, we'll just go play this game and do it, but I didn't practice. But I thought, man, if I'd have practiced 500 shots every day, 500 of those particular shots every day, I'd get pretty good at it. So the fact is, Asians just work a lot harder than all the other ethnicities, so they rise to the top, right? Asians being from India, Asians from China, Vietnam, all over the place. Is this clock right, or do we need to take a break? We have 1 minute. Okay, we're still syncing up here on all our gadgets. So the National Review said evidence shows that discrimination happens along two lines. First, Harvard evaluates applicants according to a holistic process that considers, in addition to their academic, extracurricular, and athletic achievements, personal qualities, whether they have demonstrated humor, sensitivity, grit, and leadership. So if you didn't show sensitivity to maybe somebody that you should have showed it to, then it might get you booted. Asian Americans, they say, consistently rank below others on the personality metric. In other words, they're right at the top of scoring. So now we're competing on personalities. And so now it won't be long, Asian Americans will practice being a better personality, and then they'll move right up to the top, and they'll have to come up with another reason to kick them out, to let people in that are substandard folks. All right. So the share of admitted Asian students at Harvard dropped from 26% of the student population down to 18% by just like culling them out like bad peaches. All right, we'll be right back. We got 2.5 more hours to go.
Is the worst bill of the year unstoppable? I'm Randy Thomason with your SaveCalifornia.com Minute. AB 2943, authored by perversity-loving Democrat politicians, would ban counseling for anyone who wants out of homosexuality or transsexuality and would also threaten religious ministries. In committee, I testified that we oppose this bill that discriminates against and denies LGBT people's personal rights of self-improvement. But the Democrat-controlled committee wouldn't listen. They passed this special interest bill because they don't care about protecting your constitutional liberties. They blindly support the unnatural, unhealthy LGBT agenda like slaves working for their masters. See how you can urge a veto of this un-American bill at SaveCalifornia.com, fighting the good fight for your values in California.
Did you know that Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution lays out the framework for the state of Jefferson's plan to split California? A state can be formed from the land within another state if the state legislature and Congress approve it with a simple majority vote. 51% is all it takes. Your vote doesn't count in Northern California. California is broken and the time has come for 51. Please visit soj51.net and donate now to show your support.
Check out the Territorial Dispatch. The paper is a weekly and can be obtained free at distribution or by mail through subscription. It's the only locally owned and operated newspaper in the region. The paper is the rest of the story. And also check out the E-Territorial. It's an online version of the Territorial Dispatch which features local news and events for the Yuba Sutter, Colusa, and Nevada County areas. You'll also find daily and breaking news updates, current traffic, and weather information, along with a calendar of local events. Visit the E-Territorial at eterritorial.com.
The left spent the weekend blasting the Trump administration for its handling of illegal aliens at the border, accusing him of losing children, tearing apart families, and keeping children in cages like dogs. And surprise, they're lying. Here's MSNBC's Chris Hayes with the first big fat one.
Last month, the New York Times reported that HHS lost track of nearly 1,500 migrant children placed with sponsors. Of more than 7,000 unaccompanied minors, those are minors who come without parents, who cross the border, that's 1,500 children lost by the government.
No, Chris, the Trump administration did not lose 1,500 kids. For those of you who have not been paying attention since, 2013, here's how this works. Unaccompanied kids come across the border and get stopped by border agents. They're processed and turned over to the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Then they're sent to sponsors who already live in the United States. Most of these sponsors are the kids' parents or close relatives. The vast majority of the sponsors are illegal. They don't want to get deported, so they don't show up for the kids' court date. Instead, they move, so the government can't find them. The administration is not losing kids. The kids and their families aren't staying put. How do I know all of this? Because I was writing about it 4 years ago when it was happening under Obama. This isn't new. In fact, here's a clip from a CBS article published in February of 2016. It says, and I quote, "Finding immigrant children with outstanding deportation orders is also complicated by the fact that they often are no longer at the addresses provided to the government. We're out looking," ICE official Thomas Homan said, "but they are hard to find. A lot of these folks who don't show up in court, we don't know where they're at." So all of these leftists freaking out over Trump losing kids, where was your outrage back in 2016? Actually, why haven't you been concerned with the thousands of kids who slipped through the cracks for the past half a decade? The Trump administration has placed about 16,000 kids with sponsors this fiscal year. Obama placed over 52,000 in 2014 alone, and home visits were conducted for less than 6%. Where was all of your righteous indignation then? Oh, and the lies get better. The left is also accusing the Trump administration of ripping children out of the arms of their mothers at the border. Once again, let's break this down. What's happened, and rightly so, is that the Trump administration ended the Obama-era catch and release policy, which essentially allowed any adult who came across the border with a child to be given a notice to appear in court and sent on their way. And surprise, about 80% of them don't show up for their hearing. Now here's what the media won't tell you. Left-wing federal judges in places like California have ruled that the government cannot detain minors at an immigration detention facility for more than 20 days. But the government can detain the adult parent. Now, this helps deter illegal immigration and hold immigration violators accountable while keeping vulnerable children from being locked up with adults in a detention facility. This is not rocket science. The only other options would be to incarcerate the children with the parent, which is illegal and would probably go over like a lead balloon, or to simply let all these adults go and not prosecute illegal immigration at all. And we see how well that's worked out. See, Trump did not create this situation. He's just dealing with the mess. Oh, and here's the really fun one. Here's a photo of an immigration detention center that has circulated over the weekend. Thousands of liberals lost their minds over images of kids being kept in cages, blaming Trump for treating kids like dogs. Now here's the problem with this photo. It's from 2014. Guess who was president in 2014? Hint, not Trump. In fact, many of those who freaked out over this photo ended up deleting their tweets once they realized it was from the Obama era. So to all those bleeding heart liberals who suddenly care so much about the children at our border, here's my question. Where has all this outrage been for the last half a decade? Where was your anger that Obama's lax immigration policies were resulting in thousands of people being packed in like cattle in dirty warehouses infested with scabies and lice? Here's a photo that I took in 2014 during a border tour in Texas. I was screaming about it. Where were you? Where were you when border agents were telling me that they had found dead bodies of children abandoned in the desert after being used by human smugglers as a golden ticket into the U.S.? Where were you when Obama was dumping thousands of children into communities across the United States, never to be heard from again? Where were you in 2016 when the Washington Post was reporting that the Obama administration was funneling unaccompanied children to human traffickers, slavers, and abusers? Oh, but now Trump's president, so you care about the children. Now that we're trying to fix the mess that liberal policies have created at our border, oh, now you're paying attention. Bull. You don't give two craps about these kids or their parents, because if you did, you would have cared 4 years ago when we were sounding the alarm about all of this. But you didn't, because you care more about slamming Trump than about any of these children.
Right. Well, if you've been reading any of the articles in the paper around these Yuba Sutter counties, and in fact, one of the Gridley listeners just sent me a bunch of documents on the state of the finances up there in Gridley. He said, Lou, I think you ought to pay attention up here in Gridley. You don't ever talk about Gridley. Well, I'm going to give a shout out. I know Gridley can listen to us because it's just a bit up the road from where we're located. So thank you for sending that information in. But everybody's talking about let's raise taxes, all these government officials. So we done spent all your money. Now we need some more of your money. And so whether it's up there in Gridley, I bet up there in Nevada County, Colusa County, Placer County. Of course, Gridley is in Butte County. But I know in Yuba and Sutter County, everybody's wanting some more money. And they're wanting to raise taxes. And what they're talking about is now in the paper today, Sutter County Fire Department saying we need to we need to add a fire assessment fee or a fire tax. We don't have enough money to take care of. You know, it's interesting. When you wonder why were counties and cities organized? Why didn't people just live on their own and when they had a fire just get out a hose and put the darn fire out, right? And like up in Smartville when I used to live up there coming out of my hippie life, we all joined, we must have been the joke of the town. We all joined the volunteer Smartville Fire Department and we would all run down there just a block away. They'd sound the alarm and we would run to the fire department and try to start the engine, which was an ordeal because a lot of times it just wouldn't start. Hadn't been started for so long because nobody ever had any action up there. And all these hippies would run down there and try to jump on the back. It was hilarious. So we'd run down there and just get the garden hose out, try to knock it down with a garden hose. Somebody told me the other day, you know, the amount of money these firefighters get, right? I like firefighters. I work with them a lot. I like them as people and cops. I'm a big fan of law enforcement and fire. Man, they make a lot of money. And at some point you have to say, well, somebody said, well, it's a real dangerous job. You know, actually, loggers die more often than firefighters. But it's never good for anybody to die, right? But man, they make a lot of money. And at some point, like you could say, well, hey, they're, you know, the cops always say, nobody loves us. They all love the firefighters, right? The cops are always the bad guys. Firefighters never arrest anybody. I was doing a character counts, you know, the character counts classes we do in the schools. I was doing a character counts class, and I don't know whether I brought it up. This little kid raised her hand. She said, the police, I said something about the police, and he said, I don't like the police. I said, what's the problem? She said, they arrested my daddy last night. You know, for kids, you know, I don't care. Dad walks on water. It doesn't matter whether he's a methamphetamine cooker. And so everybody's having trouble funding, and you wonder, how come we're having, because people are paying a lot of money in taxes in California. Like, where's all this money going, right? It's like somebody said the other day, said, man, my water bill was high. Can't figure out where all the water is going. Do I have a leak? Right? Is there a leak? And it's just running all the time, going somewhere else? Or is my neighbor, when I'm gone, hooking up to my system? What's going on here? That happens at my place. People hook up a cord across the fence and they're borrowing power from the neighbor. Well, I wanted to mention this week, you ought to go check this meeting out because the Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots are partnering up, or maybe some of them are in both organizations, with Yuba Sutter Constitutional Republicans. And they're meeting on the 28th. That's this coming Thursday at 6:30 in Yuba City at the City Hall. They call it the Sutter Room. I'm wondering if that isn't the City Council chambers. But it's 1201 Civic Center Boulevard. It's the corner of Butte House Road and Civic Center Boulevard. It's very easy to find. And when you walk into the center of the complex, you'll see where to go. But they're going to have a good speaker. And the reason I think he's good is not only what his background is, but also who he's affiliated with. And his name is Eric Eisenhammer. And Eric is the director of grassroots operation for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, or you could go hjta.org. Now, if you're new to this and you don't know Howard Jarvis, you got to go back to the 1970s when people were going broke because the property taxes in California were so bad, so high, that people who had paid for their house, retired people who were now on a limited income, were having to sell their homes to stay alive financially. And Howard Jarvis and Paul Gann, it was called the Jarvis-Gann Prop 13, they cranked up this proposition, and I mean, people voted it in. And it put the kibosh on these assessors just raising taxes whenever they wanted to. And so that's how we got Proposition 13 back from 1970s. And so today, if you're in California, one of the better breaks you get is the property taxes have been held down. So Howard Jarvis is a great organization. It has become a watchdog on all kinds of taxes. So Eric Eisenhammer, I want to call him, well, anyway, I'll just stick with that before I get off on a tangent. Eric Eisenhammer is a public speaker, and he's real knowledgeable on tax and energy policy, digital communications. He's a small business owner. You know, it's nice when people aren't just politicians, right? He actually has done something where he produced something. He's a small business owner, and he works he's very interested in the whole concept of lower taxes and job creation. So Eric is coming up because he's going to be talking about the push also, I believe, to get John Cox elected. Now, some of my Christian, Republican, or conservative so-called friends, they have a flat spot on the brain. I just had an interaction last night with a guy that sends me occasional emails. I've never met him face to face, and he said, you know, I'm reading about John Cox. I said, just quit reading about John Cox and just vote for him, right? We need somebody other than Gavin Newsom. Hold that thought. You know, a lot of times these Republicans get so myopic. I mean, they're so tight visionary. They think they're going to have to marry the guy they're going to vote for, or have sex with him, or live with him, or move in with him, or they're comparing him to Jesus, right? Forget all that. What we're trying to do is, right now, we just need somebody we agree with something on to be governor, rather than having Gavin Newsom, right? But some of my Republican folks, man, they've been all on me. Oh, well, you know, we really missed it with Travis Allen. We didn't miss it with Travis Allen because Jesus could have, if Jesus came in third, we still don't get Jesus as a governor, right? You got to have somebody that can actually get a shot at it. So that to get a shot at it, you got to get them into the final election. Losing in the primary gets you nothing but saying, oh, I really loved going to that dinner and listening to Travis Allen. Well, forget Travis Allen. So what, you had, you know, baked chicken and listen to Travis Allen, and you got to shake his hand, take a photo with him. Well, la-di-da. We're trying to change the state of California, not giving you some, you know, goosebumps. So go out and check out this event this coming Thursday night at 6:30. And you know something? If you just stay home, you're going to get what we've always got, which is a pretty crappy deal in the state of California. So, all right, we'll get back to business here. So I was talking about Harvard University, and there's a group called Students for Fair Admissions, and they're suing Harvard University for, of all things, racial discrimination. You would never think that would have been possible. You think, oh, they're discriminating against blacks and Hispanics. No, not to the contrary. They're discriminating against other groups. So Peter R.C. Diancono, who is the attorney for the folks that feel ripped off, the plaintiffs, he said an Asian American applicant who is a male is not economically disadvantaged and has, based on his own characteristics, a 25% chance of getting in, would see his odds markedly increase if he belonged to another group. So you got it. What he's saying is an Asian American who can pay his own way and is very smart, he would have a 25% chance now of getting into Harvard. But if he was another flavor, his chances would be 36% if he were white. Look out. Asians are, in other words, just some white trash that was kind of a little lame around the edges. He would have, if the Asian was a white dude, he'd get 36% chance of getting in. And if he was Hispanic, his chances of getting into Harvard University would go up to 77%. And if he were black, he would have a 95% chance of getting into Harvard University. Now, think of that. You talk about screwy thinking. And you're wanting to send your kids to these universities so they'll really be smart? These people are twisted. So the interesting thing is that this isn't the first time that universities in the United States have discriminated against a high-performing ethnic group. They did it in the 1920s. I'll just let you think about that. In the 1920s, if it wasn't Asian Americans, who do you think were getting discriminated against wanting to get into these elite Ivy League universities? Huh? They were discriminated against. High-performing people, but they weren't letting them in. They were Jewish Americans. 1920s. Nazi Germany on the rise. Isn't it interesting how liberal social engineering, and so back then they were discriminated against Jews and saying, we don't want any more of those people in our universities. We want other types of people. Well, when I was running a commune back in my ex-hippie days, we had a guy from the Bronx, New York show up, and we led him to Jesus, and his name was John O'Keefe. And he'd never even eaten a taco before. They didn't even have tacos back then. Yeah. Now you can get a taco anywhere in town around here, Yuba Sutter area. He'd never even eaten a taco. And one day he told me how when he was raised back in the Bronx, because he never even been out in the country. He just raised in the inner city, right? And he thought that milk was manufactured. He didn't even know they had a cow on the picture of the cow on the carton. He thought it was just like you make Gatorade, right? And I noticed that this idiot that's up there running Canada, president of Canada, he says we don't need U.S. farmers anymore. You know, all this tariff talk. We have grocery stores. Now I want you to just think about that. A lot of people think that way. Do you know that? We don't need farmers anymore. Hey, cut the water. Stop all of spraying to try to kill the bugs, all the water, this, that, dust. We're sick and tired of the dust. You know, they're out disking rice fields and dust is coming over Marysville. I got to have a cleaner. In fact, that lady's helping me clean my house right when I'm talking right here. I'm multitasking. And Justin Trudeau says we don't need any U.S. farmers. We don't need no stinking U.S. farmers. We got grocery stores in Canada. Well, God bless you up there. Venezuela's got grocery stores, and you look down the aisle, and it's just like You could like skateboard on those shells, man. You could skateboard down those. I like all these people. People are thinking outside the box. You know, we were listening to that clip earlier about the absolute fraudulent liars and cheats making up stories about people at the border. It is just unbelievable. And so now all kinds of people are talking about all the kids that are separated from parents, right? So I love this one. Said there are currently 765,000 children separated from their active duty military parents. So do we care about them, Democrats? No, we don't, because the Democrats, the liberals, are always wanting to cut the pay of people in the military. It's like we hate those people in the military, and we don't care that our kids don't get to see pops for a year or moms for a year. I like this one, too, another deal. This guy tweeted, last month, Democrats loved a porn star. This month, they're all about family values. Some of the, I wish I could think like this. I don't have that. So the guy says, well, they are flexible. I'll give them that. So anyway, let me go down here. We got a couple minutes left. I want to start talking about, if I can find this really quick. Oh, here we go. We're getting here. So Ann Coulter has done all kinds of research on, if I can find it now. Oh, I can't find it. I'm not going to be able. I'll find it in a minute. Let me just jump to this. I'll come back to this, the border thing, because I'm getting educated on the border thing because I got these illegal aliens in the Yuba County Jail that I talk to all the time now. They're educating me. And but I want to talk, and I want to, next section, after we take a break here in a few minutes, I want to talk about the finances of the counties, and whatever county you're in, you're facing the exact same problem because all these politicians are going over the cliff holding hands. And so there's an article that was written called California Gets an F from the Truth and Accounting Group. Now, so there's a group called Truth and Accounting that are holding government accountable for what they tell the public. So on one hand, Yuba County will say, oh, we're supervisors. You'll hear them say, we're doing fine. Then they got to go borrow money to pay CalPERS. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit on both sides of our river, which we call Yuba Sutter, but you're facing it all over. So anyway, the Nonpartisan Truth and Accounting Project, they awarded California an F for claiming surpluses, like they have surpluses, instead of a 269.9, like let's just call it 270 billion deficit. Hold that thought. I know some of you can't handle the word Chicago because some of my really flat-brained friends said, oh, did you know that Cox is from Chicago? I thought, what are you like? Do they all have HIV back there? How many people in Chicago? 12 million? You're writing off an entire city? It's like, is it Sodom and Gomorrah? Just like rain, fire, and hell down on them? So this is a Chicago-based group, this accounting auditing group, and they do audits of financial statements in all 50 states. I thought, well, good for them. We need somebody like that. And they say that California has a $270 billion shortfall, which equates to $22,000 burden for each of the 12.3 million taxpayers in the state. You know, there's almost 40 million people here, and just 12.3 are actually paying the bill. I want you to think about this. Where do you think this is coming from? The California financial burden is primarily due to its current $461.3 billion promised public employee retirement benefits, which are $102.5 billion underfunded. In other words, they just don't have the money. And then $107 billion unfunded retiree health benefits. Now, my friend who just sent me this documents from the city of Gridley, it says right there, they're kind of holding their budget steady, but they're having to cut a lot of places. And the reason is that their health and their pensions are going up by hundreds of thousands of dollars this next fiscal year. Okay, we're going to take a break, and we're going to kick into the second hour. Some other people need to talk here for a minute. Then we'll come right back to talk about finances. Well, almost every week now I get these fancy, multicolored, thick cardstock flyers from the Yuba County. And I think, let's see, they're signed by Robert Bendorf, so I don't know whether Robert's paying for these out of his own salary, making $300,000 a year, or whether old Lou's paying for some of these since I live over here in Yuba County. But I just wanted to let Russ Brown, who's a public information officer, know that they got a typo on here. And he's always correcting my mistakes. And so I would just notice, did you know? This is one of these scare pieces. Did you know? Did you know only 25 sheriff's deputies currently patrol 664 square miles of Yuba County? Now, you know, Santos and I, when we ever get into jam, we always refer to Wikipedia because we know that it's just, there was the 10 Commandments and then there's Wikipedia. And so I just want to let Russ know that according to Wikipedia, Yuba County does not have 664 square miles. It has 644 square miles. So they're exaggerating by 20 miles. Now, I get these texts all the time. People correcting me. No, it was this. No, it was that. Amanda Hopper didn't get her wages garnished by the IRS. She voluntarily agreed to have money taken out of her check. So, you know, I know these are small things, but it's 644 square miles. Wikipedia goes on to and give a little detail in case you're interested in moving to Yuba County. It has 632 square miles of land, but sheriff's deputies also patrol the water. Did you know that? In fact, they have a fine. They have of Yuba Sutter counties, they have the most elaborate, expensive, and I mean that in a good way. They spend a lot of money on it because they have 12 square miles of waterways. Look out. Dams, lakes, stuff like that. So anyway, I've said there's this Did You Know brochure. And so anyway, just thought you need to you need to follow up on what these people are telling you. I'm going to go back here because I want to plow through some of this financial stuff. I'm not going to give you lots of numbers. I'm just going to tell you that you're being lied to by politicians at every level of the state, county, state, federal. And they bait and switch their discussions. One day they're saying they're doing a good job. It isn't our fault. It's somebody somewhere back in time made some bad decisions, and now we're just inheriting them. And so not only do we have to comply with the rules to keep paying these egregious costs, but we have no ability to change anything at the county level or the city level or the agency level because it's the state. And the judges, they got this thing they got us by the short hairs. So this organization, Truth in Accounting founder Sheila Weinberg, warns that California is a giant sinkhole state. Not a stinkhole, but sinkhole. And not a S-hole like we called other countries, but a sinkhole state. Miss Weinberg is especially critical of Governor Brown claiming or lying about an $8.8 billion surplus this year. He avoids the fact, according to Weinberg, that California has only $100.1 billion in available assets to pay $369.9 billion worth of bills. Now I like this woman. I took accounting in college, and I passed. It was hard. I never thought along those lines of taking a account. I took 2 semesters of accounting, not bookkeeping, full-blown accounting. That's a hard course. It was for me. But I appreciate these people that crunch the numbers and tell the truth. So I'm just looking if I can give you anything more that's pertinent before I go on to the local scene. So what they're basically saying is in 2015, if they divided the overspending tax burden onto taxpayers, in 2015 it was just under 21,000. Then in 2016 it was just 21.6 thousand, and now it's hit 22,000 per taxpayer. The second highest in the history of the state. So there was a big old article by Rachel Rosenbaum on City Council approves its biggest budget in Yuba City. It's Yuba City. And they're increasing their budget by $757,000 in the general fund. Total budget $42 million. Man. But here's what I like. Because Rachel Rosenbaum, the writer, interviewed, it sounds like, the finance director of the city, who I think always gives such a fascinating description of the predicament of CalPERS. And so I'm just going to, I think her first name is Robin Batania. And I'll correct it if I got it. No, it's Robin Bertagna. Bertagna. You pronounce it how you want. In America, you can pronounce your name this is like pro-choice. Do your name any way you want. It says here the unfunded actuarial liability for CalPERS in Yuba City increased from $59 million to $73.3 million. That's a bad sign, folks. When your debt is going up like that, you can't. We'll get into Yuba County in a minute. Yuba City, for those who get confused, is located in Sutter County, and then we go across the river into New County. It's called Yuba County. But Bertagna said that the increase is due to changes in the assumptions at CalPERS, like the assumptions like predicting a person's lifespan given their age, gender, health factors. And let me finish this. And then lowering of the discount rate given by CalPERS. So let me just explain something. So I'm not a government employee, never have been a government employee. So if I wanted any retirement, I had to come up with the conclusion at some point in my life that one of these days I ain't going to be all buff and hot looking and able to jump a building with one leap. But I was going to get tired and gray, and parts would fall off as I walked down the street, and I better put some money aside because I'm not going to be able to work as long as hard as I used to. So I would voluntarily put money aside. And it would vary depending on how good the year went, right? But what I got out of my retirement would depend totally on the wisdom of the investments and how the economy went, right? Now, when they set up government retirement programs, they did just the opposite. It's just like if you work for the government, they said, we ain't going to lay you off. We're going to guarantee cradle to grave benefits for you. You always are going to have a job here, even if we make stupid decisions. And when you leave here, we're just going to keep on paying you till you quit breathing. And we're going to guarantee you a certain retirement benefit. Doesn't matter whether the entire economy collapses. Doesn't matter what. Doesn't matter whether we run out of money. In fact, if a county or a city wants to get out of CalPERS right now, CalPERS will continue paying those people. In fact, they'll assess the county or the city a certain amount of money as if those people are going to live their expected lifespan. That's how different it is from the private sector. It's 100% different. There's nothing similar to it. It's what they call a guaranteed, their guaranteed benefit at the end. It has nothing to do with if everybody makes, in other words, if my financial advisor makes some poor decisions, poor judgment, I suffer. If CalPERS makes some poor decisions, the taxpayer suffers, not the retiree. Okay, you got that all squared away in your head? Okay, now, so Robin, who's running the finances at the city of Yuba City, she says it's going from, we're going to have to, the debt is going from nearly $60 million to $73.3 million. And this is money the city owes to CalPERS as a debt. You know what a debt is, right? You go and get your car fixed, it's $1,500. That's a debt, right? And she said that the city would have to pay that even if we ceased to have any employees. In other words, if the city got bombed accidentally and there was no employees, no people, we would still have to pay that debt. You got it? Because it involves all the future salary promises to all these former employees, right? And current employees. We'd still have to pay the debt even if, so anyway, the amount of the city's unfunded, that means they can't afford to pay it. They're not paying it as they go along. It changes each year, she said, with depending on how CalPERS evaluates everything. Then she says, this is a statewide problem that all municipalities face. Robin is the only one that talks like this. Now, Nate Black, who's the auditor controller of Sutter County, comes on the Andy Vasquez show occasionally, and he'll do something like this. But I like the way Robin says it. She said, this is a statewide problem that all municipalities face. The city can't solve the problem alone and can only plan for it and build it into the city's budget projections. So if you wonder why you're not getting your streets fixed, now over in Yuba City they have a lot more money than Marysville, but you gotta carry a flashlight in your mouth like the Navy SEALs when you go for a walk down the streets of Marysville, because there's cracks in the street big enough you can pop your ankle. Because they don't have enough, because we got so much money going out on pensions and salaries. Last year, Robin said, was the first year the city split the year-end surplus between various categories of funding for the pension. Anyway, I'm going to skip that to get it and stay out of the weeds. This is very interesting. In order to address the pension liability, required contributions for almost all agencies in the entire state are increasing rapidly and significantly, she said. This is a quote. The city remains conservative in our budget estimates. We monitor our physical condition regularly with an emphasis on fiscal sustainability, etc. And in light of CalPERS pension costs going up. All right, that's the city of Yuba City, okay? Now, this last week, I noticed that it says on June 20, Yuba County Water Agency to loan $8 million to Yuba County. And this is so disingenuous. That's a nice way to say a lie. So at the end of the article, there's a quote that says, Yuba County has always been fortunate to have, this is like a boilerplate comment that all of these supervisors make over there that are running the Yuba County Water Agency. They're all been trained how to say this. So you can memorize it yourself. Yuba County has always been fortunate to have a great working relationship with the water agency. Now, according to Robert Bendorf, the Yuba County administrator, who makes almost $300,000 a year. He goes on to say, we share the common interest in bolstering flood protection for our community and saving taxpayer dollars. The only way that they could not share common interests between the flood agency or the water agency and the supervisors is if they had a split personality. Because the same people that are supervisors are the water agency. So when somebody says to you, we've been fortunate to have a great working relationship with the water agency, we being the Yuba County with the water agency, your assumption is there's a different group of people running the water agency as board members, as the supervisors. That's kind of a sleight of hand, right? You ever had a card trick pulled on you and the card disappears? Yeah, that's what this is all about. It's a sleight of hand comment. Talking about this harmonious relationship. It's like me, I have the person I get along with the best is myself. I can just talk myself into almost anything. Talk myself into eating a donut when I'm trying to lose weight. Talk myself into smoking some weed when I shouldn't be doing drugs, right? Just talk yourself into it. Justify anything. Steal something, tell a lie. Oh, yeah, well, this, that. You can just get along with yourself, right? It's hard to get along with other people. So to say we share common interest, I don't know who I'm sharing common interest if it's just me and then there's me. It's just my interests, right? So what happens is, I want you to think about your own life. The thing is, we get confused when we put a different set of rules on government than we do our own personal lives. I want you to think about your bills every month. You're out there working your fingers to the bone, trying to keep your kids off drugs, keep them in school, keep the teacher not to molest them, or a coach not to molest them, or do something stupid. And you're working your fingers to the bone, and then you got to pay your bills, right? And if you're going along paying your bills and you start to run behind, like the other day I went online and I paid my charge card bill by the phone, right? Just did it over the phone and just paid it. Boom. So they said, they asked me a question, do you want to make the minimum payment or do you want to pay the bill in full? And I could have chosen to pay a small minimum payment. And it sounded really good, right? Really small. But then whatever was left on the balance, they had informed me once upon a time I was going to pay like 18% or 24%, or, I was going to pay a balance. Even though I could be current with them and not be penalized for getting my payment in late by just paying a minimum payment. And then I'd pay interest on the rest, right? Fair enough. See if you agree with me. If you start to fall behind, say you have a car payment and it's due on the 3rd of the month, but you can't pay it this month until the next week because that's when you get paid. And then later on, you're a little bit later, maybe a couple more days later, and then you get a little bit later, and you can't you're just barely, and all of a sudden, you used to pay your charge card payment off full every month, but now all of a sudden you got to pay just the minimum. Is that a bad sign to you? I've done financial counseling. I'm not a certified or legit, right? I'm like under the table financial counselor, volunteer. I don't take any money for it. I just know some stuff, not a lot. But I used to tell people, if you can't pay your bills on time, you're in trouble. Hello, are you with me? You either got to go out and make some more money, or you got to cut costs, right? Or both. You with me? So the supervisors are celebrating this $8 million loan like they just saved us a lot of money, right? Well, they did kind of, right? It's kind of like me saying, I want to, instead of the minimum payment, they're being real nice. You can go ahead and make a minimum payment. Instead, I pay the whole thing. And then I say to myself, I saved myself so much money right then. Because, why? Because I didn't pay no 24% interest for the next 30 days on that unpaid balance. So in the Yuba County Water Agency loans, the same people that are making this decision at the water agency were the same people that decided they were short of money over at the supervisors, right? They just changed hats and said, darn, we get along with each other. And they took their left hand and they high-fived their right hand, and they said, God bless you, I love you. And it's amazing how we agree. Andy says to Andy, Randy said to Randy, Doug said to Doug, man, I agree with myself so well. So Yuba County Water Agency will loan $8 million. Now, how does this work? The way it is, CalPERS, if you pay monthly payments into CalPERS, they charge you 3.6% interest on that money. Now, why would they charge you in? Why would the charge card people charge me interest? Because I'm using their money, right? I'm using their money. So they said, you can use our money, but we're going to charge you for it, right? We're good. Just make a minimum monthly payment. So CalPERS says you can make a minimum monthly payment, but we're going to charge you 3.6 interest. What's deceptive about the water agency and the Board of Supervisors, who are the same five ducks, is that they're making this sound like they just are financial wizards, and they're not. If this is like economics 101, pay your bills on time. Otherwise, you get charged interest. So what they're doing now, they cannot afford to pay their bills on time at Yuba County. Because why? Because they overcommitted to unions. They keep doing it. They keep raising the pay. They keep paying people's retirement for them. And they cannot pay their bills every month. They can't pay on time. So they got to borrow $8 million to pay that bill, and then it's like consolidating. You know, you get a new plea from the super duper charge card. We're only going to charge you this little bit of interest and consolidate we'll take all the debt from your other cards, put it over here. That's exactly what they did with borrowing this $8 million, because they're only have to pay 1% versus 3.6%, because that's all the Yuba County Water Agency was. So all they did is they consolidated all their cards, if you want to look at it on a personal level. And then they just crowed about it. Ooh, we are wizards. We are like financial wizards, and we're saving you all this money. No. They overcommitted and overspent, and now they're trying to bail their rear end out, and then they're taking credit for it. Come on, man. Guys, and then they say how they all get along with one another. That's five people getting along with the same five people. Lou Benninger gets home. He says, I'm going to do the dishes. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Okay, fine. I'm not. And I agree. I agree with myself. I'm not. Let those dishes sit there another day. Screw those dishes. Because I get along with myself. That's how these guys are doing. Robert Bendor says, and Brent Hasty says the same thing. We work so well together. Well, it's just Brent Hasty agreeing with himself. He's a supervisor, and he goes and puts a hat on. This is so dishonest. You know what it's like? Oh, we got to take a break. We're going to take a break. He's telling me quit talking. I'll be back in just a minute.
Did you know that California was never supposed to be just one state? Before the state was formed in 1850, there was discussion of forming 3 states instead of 1. California has an area larger than 7 East Coast states combined, and it takes 14 hours to drive from one end of the state to the other. California is simply too large to govern. Rural communities are being outvoted by more densely populated areas. The state of Jefferson is the solution. Please visit SOJ51.net to show your support.
Check out the Territorial Dispatch. Papers are weekly and can be obtained free at distribution or by mail through subscription. It's the only locally owned and operated newspaper in the region. The paper is the rest of the story. And also check out the E-Territorial. It's an online version of the Territorial Dispatch, which features local news and events for the Yuba Sutter, Colusa, and Nevada County areas. You'll also find daily and breaking news updates, current traffic, and weather information, along with a calendar of local events. Visit the E-Territorial at eterritorial.com.
All right. Well, I wanted to mention that earlier I mentioned about the Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots. It helps us. I was mentioning their meeting coming up on Thursday night at 6:30 at the Yuba City Hall, where Eric Eisenhammer is going to speak, and he's with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and so check that out. But also Elite Universal Security, which is a security business operating out of Yuba County, which operates in multiple counties in the North State. And I want to just, I see them all over my neighborhood because my neighborhood's kind of out of control. I got the police involved in my neighborhood, but they've been doing a good job. Back just in about 2 weeks, when I talked to the chief, they are like getting cars moved, junk cars. It's like getting them off the streets. But also, we got elite universal security because we got so much transients because the head of Yuba County, Robert Bendorf, he created the Bendorf Zoo. I don't know whether you've been by and seen that yet. It's over by the rescue mission, and so you can drive by it like a fenced-in area. You know how you can go in the zoo and you can look at the animals. You can't go play with the animals in the zoo. People always get chewed up when they do that. But you can drive by the Bendorf Zoo and look at folks that have been housed in there in these little sheds. And so since that happened, it changed my entire neighborhood. And so now we have all kinds of crazy behavior going on, like people in the middle of the night sneaking around, cutting people's bushes down and taking a poop in people's yards and, just stealing stuff. People being arrested for battery, and when they list them in the paper, they don't have an address. They're just homeless. So anyway, Elite Universal Security has been hired by a lot of businesses in my area because people are intimidating folks, like going into the CVS. You go into CVS and people are like hustling you for money and coming up to your car and some people are tough enough. They just say, hey, bug off, right? But other people are really intimidated. So they have security now that businesses are paying for, and actually you can, even if you go on vacation, you can pay Universal Security. They'll patrol your home, do a welfare check on your home. So they're located in Yuba County at 749-0280. You could check them out. But if you wanted to get involved with a job, if you want a job, like I heard Andy Vasquez earlier talking about all the jobs that are available, and it's true. People are advertising everywhere. In fact, if you go on to EliteUniversalSecurity.com website, you're going to see jobs available, and you could get one and you think, well, I'd like that job, but I don't know anything about it. They'll train you. And if you go on their website, and then they'll probably transfer you over to api-academy.com, that's their school. And some of the classes are online. You could do them in the middle of the night. If you're tweaking or something, you could study all night. Or you could go out to the class, and you can renew your concealed weapons permit. In fact, this weekend, and I'll look it up in a second I don't know whether they have next month's posted yet, but this weekend, today and tomorrow, they're doing classes for concealed weapons, and they're going to have a range day tomorrow. But they also have all kinds of courses on how to use tasers, cuffing people, de-escalation training. They do all kinds of training, and they'll prepare you. You don't have to go to college or anything. They just get you ready to go. You can get yourself a job. So check it out. And I think you'll be happy with what you find there. So I want to go back here for a second, and Andy Vasquez, a supervisor for Yuba County, called in. He said, hey, Brent Hasty is not a supervisor. And I actually didn't mean to insinuate he was. I know who he is. He's been a supervisor, but he did when he left being a supervisor, he didn't like leaving the money. So he ran for, like on the Yuba County Water Agency, there's 7 directors. 5 of them are the 5 supervisors. They just get a different cup of coffee and they say, now I are a water agency director. I used to be a supervisor, but now I are a water agency director. But Brent Hasty and another guy named Charlie Matthews, there's one agency director north of the Yuba River and one south of the Yuba River that's not a supervisor. And that's the way for many years now the board has been constructed. So Andy wanted to make sure I was really clear on that. I got it. I had it right in my head. Maybe it didn't sound that way. So the nice thing about this job is that people are watching you all the time and calling in and saying, no, it's this way, it's not that way. It isn't hot as hell, it's hot as hell, right? So there you have it. And the other thing, I'm not quite sure how he said it to Wikiman, but he was talking about CalPERS wasn't their fault, it was somebody else's fault. Now I thought, now that wasn't surprising to hear that at all. And once upon a time, the agencies and the counties and the cities and the state did not have to get involved in CalPERS. Did you know that? They just did because they thought it was a good deal. That's called a bad decision. You got that? It's called a bad decision when people think it's a good deal. In fact, I've had people tell me that it used to be supervisors in different elective positions. They say, man, I wish I'd have decided differently. Here it's 5 or 10 years later, and they say, well, I wish I hadn't have made that decision. Now, if I had the information, better information, I wouldn't have decided to do that. And so, but this is the second year in a row that the Yuba County Water Agency is now bailing out Yuba County. And I thought, well, if they want to really bail out, why don't they just bail out the sheriff's department and leave the taxes the way they are? I'm tired of paying taxes. I'm paying too darn much taxes. And the interesting thing is, and we'll have Russ Brown, once he corrects this flyer for me, I don't know, maybe Yuba County is growing, like I've grown. I was talking to some guys over at the gym the other day. I said, I've gained weight since I got out of high school. Maybe the county has grown since it started. So Russ needs to reduce the amount. I was thinking, let's see, we're 20 miles too many here. So that's like about 6 Marysvilles. About 6 Marysvilles. Yeah. So, of course, they're not all inhabited. That some of them are just like rural areas. They call them rural, R-U-R-A-L. So what the big concern is for me, I'm happy when 5 supervisors can get along with the same 5 supervisors, right? I'm happy when Andy is happy with, like Andy's up working day. He left here and he's out making some money out there. And I'm happy when he gets along with himself. And I'm happy with Doug Lofton gets along with himself and all these people. When I get conflicted with myself, I can't sleep at night, right? Does that happen to you? I say, darn, I hate it when I wish I had some kind of sleeping enhancements because I'm not getting along with myself right now. But what Robert Bendorf says, he said, all the supervisors get along with themselves. That's why they can always, they say, listen, I'm short of money over here, so I'm going to take it from this pocket and put it over into that pocket. That's what they're doing with the water agency. The concern to me is we can't pay our bills on time. That's a bad sign. And I think all of these guys, I've never heard any of them. I never heard about Andy or Randy or Doug or any of the rest of them not being able to pay their bills on time. I think if we started hearing that they personally, in their personal lives, if they weren't paying their bills, people would say, I'm not going to vote for that guy. If that guy's going to go bankrupt in his personal life, why should we give all our tax money to him? Well, that's some of those things. So what's happened is these CalPERS, the Public Employment Retirement System, and CalSTRS, this teacher's retirement system, and the health money that's being paid in, it's causing us all to go broke. Now, here's the deal. When you think about the average or median's right in the middle, not the average. The median is in the middle. The median household income, I think, is $46,000 or $48,000 a year in Yuba County, and that counts up all the household earnings. Doesn't matter how many people live in there. 2 or 3 people could be earning the total of $46,000, $48,000. That's the median. They don't count up all the individuals. That's the whole household. When you compare that to hundreds of people working for the county making over $100,000 a year, and the county administrator making up towards $300,000 a year, that is a lot of money. Now, this morning, just before I went on the air, I got one of the Gridley listeners sent me a bunch of documents from down there. He said, well, how come you don't ever talk about Gridley? We got problems here too. So I was looking over there, who's getting paid what. The chief of police up there in Gridley Dean Price, he makes $332,743. Gridley. I think I could police Gridley. I'd only charge him $45 a month. I think I could do it. $45 a month. $332,743. Woo! Come on, baby. How many people? Can you look up how many people in Gridley? Let's see how many people, what it's costing per person, counting the babies and everything. Look up the population of Gridley. That dude, he's got himself a cash cow there in Gridley. Let's just say Gridley, let's just G for Gridley, that stands for good. That good pay. And the director of public works, almost $302,000 up there in Gridley. Think of that. And I felt, when I read this about Paul Eckert, he's the city administrator, I thought, well, that poor guy's in poverty row. He only makes $206,682. I thought that guy, he's probably dipping into that EBT card at that rate. And then you got an electric supervisor. Public Works, just electric. We got a couple Public Works guys. Maybe this is assistant, Russell Hawes. He's making $178,876. So anyway, it just goes on down. They got about, this is Gridley. How many people you find up the population up there in Gridley? Oh my God. That's unbelievable. Show me that again. 6,000. Somebody's got to do the math. I'll do it here when I can't. I can only do one thing at a time. 6,584 people in the city of Gridley, and the chief, I don't know whether they got a lot of cocaine or narcotics coming through there. The chief makes 6.5. Let me write that down. I'll do the math after break. The chief makes 332,743. Now, we offered to do trauma intervention up there because it's just across the line from Sutter County at no cost. I feel bad that we offered at no cost. I should have. If I'd have offered at $50,000, they'd have probably taken it. But I offered at no cost, but the chief didn't have any interest in it. Trauma intervention to help the citizens. You know, on the side of patrol cars, it says protect and serve. That it really, I think it's protect my pay and serve myself. Come on, baby. Okay, are you figuring this up? Wikiman's doing the numbers right now. If you be patient, and we're going to crank out how much per person it's costing just to have a police chief. Jesus, would you take the police chief job for $50,000, Wiki? Wiki says thumbs up. He will take the job today for $50,000. We ought to put it out for bid. Some of these guys say, I remember when John Nicoletti, when he was supervisor for the county of Yuba, and they make about $80,000 a year. And he said, well, we got to offer a lot of money or we won't get good people. And I thought, well, we got you, and when you took the job, but it was only half that much. These people they just talk nonsense. They just say stuff. And, okay, here we go. Wiki's going to show me something here. So that is 5,000, 50,000. Huh? No, it's got to be more than that. Is it? Okay. Well, we'll figure it out in a minute. I don't want to kill a lot of time here. Hey, do you have that other clip? Do you have that Mark Baird clip hanging around? Now, you guys, I'm going to slip off this finance thing because I got this clip I want to play. I'll go back to it in a minute if we have more to say on it. But I got a lot of other cool stuff to talk about. Man, it's like crazy out there. Hey, you've noticed this guy down in Silicon Valley, Draper, he keeps wanting to split the state his way. He doesn't give a crap about the North State, the 20 to 25 counties north of Sacramento, right? Draper. And so he wanted to split the state 6 ways, and it still didn't help the North State. Then he wants to split it 3 ways, and we still end up with Sacramento and San Francisco in the North State, the Jefferson State. So this is Mark Baird. He's the guy that's been kind of the leader of the state of Jefferson movement. This is his statement about the 3-state split that Draper's promoting on the November ballot. Okay, you ready?
Hi, this is Mark Baird. Hi, this is Mark Baird, and I'd like to read a statement to you about the state of Jefferson's response to Tim Draper's three-state initiative. California is irreparably broken. We need to start over. It's the only way to escape the utter lack of representation suffered by the citizens of Jefferson as well as the rest of California. Tim Draper's three-state initiative will not accomplish this. Draper failed to consult the people of the counties affected as to their wish to be included in one of his state constructs. Where Jefferson has rallied popular support in every single one of our 23 counties, we know the will of our citizens. Tim Draper and his paid minions never asked. Draper's initiative fails to consider that Congress must approve by majority vote all Article 4, Section 3 state splits. The prospect of 3 blue states adding to the United States is not very appealing to us, nor will it be very appealing to Congress. Jefferson, on the other hand, proposes breaking California into 2 parts. We propose the addition of only 1 new state with true constitutional republic and adequate representation, which in our state will grow with the population. We propose a state senate with equal representation for each and every county as a check on power to our state assembly. Finally, Tim Draper proposes 3 states which will be dominated by the same urban counties that currently dominate California. We will not submit to continued tyranny by simply adding more deck chairs to the Titanic. The people of Jefferson demand liberty, with adequate representation within a state of our own making, and we will settle for nothing less. We, the people of the state of Jefferson, created government to secure our liberty and our rights. We will fight to secure that liberty. The time has come for 51 states. Please join us. Go to soj51.org to learn how you can help us create a state with constitutional republic and adequate representation for all of its citizens. Thank you.
All right. That's Mark Baird, if you just popped in, and he's up, I can always forget, is he in Shasta or Siskiyou? Siskiyou? He's in Siskiyou County. Mark Baird has worked in the private sector. You know, people are just so unkind to people that are trying to do something and not get any credit or money for it. People have said, oh, you're just trying to get a big job in the new state. Oh, you just want a government job. Actually, Mark Baird is a pilot. I think he flew in Vietnam, and he's flown private freight, planes around the world. And I still think he does some flying for pay. But, his comment, I was talking to him one day, he said, all I want, if we got a state of Jefferson, I could go back and play with my grandkids. He said, I want to be a grandpa. He said, I'm getting too old for all this. I don't want a full-time job or work for the government. So anyway, let me just go back. I'm actually in shock here right now because I was thinking about the police chief of Marysville, Chris Sachs, who's been so helpful to me since he's been chief and cleaning up our community. And I think Chris, or Christian, S-A-C-H-S, it's not S-A-X, like axe me to go with you. You didn't axe me to go to the fair with you. Axe, A-X. It's Sachs, S-A-C-H-S. I think he gets about $150,000 or $60,000, maybe something like that, for his job. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Because he wouldn't be listed on Transparent California. Marysville's real slow about getting those numbers up anyway. This guy's making twice as much as Chris Sachs, and this guy's only got 6,000 population. Marysville's got 12,000, and it's got all those. Marysville's got all these people, lots of people traveling through town all the time, right? Because they got this bottleneck in town until they can. There's some people wanting to put a loop outside the city, which I'm all for. Like, get that traffic outside the city. They don't want to stop here anyway. It's just a big old pain in the rear. I think they just ought to, if they charged everybody coming in the city, they'd figure out a loop. Even if they had to drive on a dirt road, they'd charge them $15 to drive through and lower the sales tax. But can you imagine? Wikiman figured it out. It's $50 for every person is breathing up there. $50 sum $332,743 for a chief over 6,584 population. You know, people, you know what they always do is when you start criticizing, Dean Price may be the nicest guy in the world and a good police chief. Not saying a thing about him. I'm just looking at the position. A lot of people want to make personal. Oh, you don't like him. How come you're being unkind to him? It has nothing to do with the people to me. It's just a position. So I like Robert Bendorf. I think he does a lot of things really well. But I don't think, we can't afford him. We can't afford executive positions in the county at $200 to $300 or over $300,000 a year. We just can't afford it. And quit raising the darn taxes. Reduce the salaries, and if they don't want to stay, let them go somewhere else and hire somebody else. Like Wiki said, he'd take the chief's job for $50,000. So now he's also telling me to quit talking. So we're going to let somebody else talk. I'll be back for one more hour. All right. I was just looking at all the salaries here of the city of Gridley, which is just in the southern Butte County, just right across the Sutter County border. And Juan Solis is the finance director, and he makes $178,876. I think he got confused. Instead of managing the money, he thought he had the finance director, he directs the money to him. I think that's what he thought that meant. His finance director, do you like to direct it to moi? Ma. Like, get my pocket. I need some bigger pockets. $178,000. It'd take me a decade to make that kind of money. It's like some people just had their tongue planted in the right spot in their mouth at the right time in their life, and money just rained on them, right? Just rained down on them. I can't believe it. Gridley, what's going on up there? They got a gold mine? They got a gold mine in that city? They take care of 6,584 population, and the boss up there, the chief of police, he's making all the big bucks, right? $332,743 for 2018 and 19. I wonder when Dean became a cadet with law enforcement, if he ever in his right mind thought one of these days, when I get all grown up, I'm going to make myself almost $333,000. Holy mackerel. And they're going to pay that guy a good deal of that money till that boy takes his last breath. Wow. Come on, baby. And then it's the people's fault that we're not giving them enough money. Wow. Wow. It's a lot of money right there. Come on, baby. All right. To me, the entire... I was talking to this gal the other day. She's in Yuba County Jail. And she was she worked for the cartel for years. And she packaged heroin from the time she was a teenager. I mean, it was a full-time job, right? She went to work, got up in the morning, left her kids, kissed them goodbye, and went and packaged heroin all day. That was her gig, right? And but then when things got rough down there in Mexico with the cartels killing each other and chopping each other's heads off and doing wild things, she said, well, I think I better smuggle people into the country. So she was a coyote, but when she'd get caught, because she was illegal and didn't have any ID, she'd just say, well, the coyote abandoned us and we're just stranded, so have mercy on us. And they'd let them go and turn them back in the United States. But finally, they would keep their names, but pretty soon, just like when we were smuggling Bibles into China, pretty soon they'd look at our passports and say, wait a minute, you've been in 5 times today. What's up? How come you're going back and forth across the border so many times? So they were noticing her name at all these crossings up and down the border in Mexico because she was the coyote, right? And she was making money off that. Then she moved up to the United States and was moving heroin through the United States, got arrested and got put in jail. So what's going on at the border is fraudulent. Like if you go to third world countries very much, people come up to you on the streets and they will be carrying. I had in India when I visited there, a woman had a dead baby in her arms wanting money, a dead baby, wanting help for the dead baby. I never had that happen in other third world countries, but that was gnarly up in New Delhi. But in other places of the world, people of that culture are exploiting their own children for sex, making money off them for sex, selling their own kids, having their kids beg on the street. It's a cash cow. So these people from America that are whining and crying and stewing over this are just either totally ignoramuses or they just want to have an overthrow of this government. Now, Ann Coulter, in an article that ran recently, the title of which is Ann Coulter, Google Internet. She's telling the media to Google Internet. In other words, do your homework before you write all these stupid articles. So she's talking about here all the examples of liars at the border. So she said the New Yorker article begins with Caroline, an illegal alien from a middle-class family in Africa who passed herself off to a U.S. immigration authority as a victim of rape and torture. The gal lives in a decent family in Africa, not a poor family. As she admitted to the New Yorker later while giggling, she said, well, I've really never been raped. So all these people that are coming up saying they want asylum, they're just making up stuff. How are you going to figure out whether their story is true or not? See, the Democrats just want everybody, like I got a text or we got something from somebody earlier today saying, hey, this is all about building the voter base of Democrats. I don't bring that up a lot because I figured everybody figured that out, but maybe not. But all these excuses, so when there are special lines at the border. If you come up legitimately at the border, there are special lines that you get in for application if you're an asylum candidate, like you think I'm going to be killed or I'm going to be tortured by remaining in my old country, like you're coming up through Mexico, maybe you're talking about Nicaragua or somewhere. But there's special consideration given to these type of folks. So everybody's just going through and saying, yeah, that's my problem. This is what's going on. So they caught this Caroline admitting finally she'd never been raped. She was from a middle-class family. But to get access to the U.S., she lied about it. Okay, I'm going to tell you some of these just so it clues you into what's going on at the border, people. You know, the Border Patrol people are good citizens. Our Border Patrol enforcement people are good citizens, and they're not stupid. But stuff happens. Our immigration officials, she says, are so thorough, so hard to fool, that they granted, she's being sarcastic, they granted Beatrice Munyazi asylum and citizenship, allowing her and her kids to live off the U.S. taxpayers for 10 years before federal prosecutors notice. Here's what they notice. Hey, she was a victim of the Rwanda genocide. She wasn't a victim. That's what she claimed. She was actually one of the perpetrators. And she came in, it's like the Nazis fled Germany and got into South America, right? Like they were victims. This gal wasn't a victim, Beatrice Munyazi. She was actually a murderer. And she personally sentenced thousands of Rwandan women and children to their death, and we let her in until federal prosecutors caught up to her. Now, you remember the Rwandan catastrophe was under the Clinton administration. So let me give you another one. These are just, I just think it's fascinating. Like I was in a great restaurant in Hoi An, Vietnam. It's right on the ocean. It's a beautiful place. Everybody's got to go there. It's a beautiful place. And so I'd never been there before. The lady took me, a friend took me there. And so we were having some dinner, and the proprietor of the restaurant who was also a cooked and ran the restaurant, came out and she says, "Where are you from?" We talked. She said, "How do you like the food?" It was great. We were chatting and she said, "Would you marry me?" And I thought, "You've lost your mind." And she said, "Well, I want to go to America." She said, "We work very hard here and don't make much money." And I thought, "I'm with you. I get it." And she said, "If you will marry me, then I can come to the United States." I said, "Honey, you and I both are going to get arrested on one of these deals." So I get it. All over the world, people are struggling in numbers of countries. They work very hard. Some people do. Some people are lazy, but some people work very hard. They're very talented. I'm confident if that woman came here, she would take care of herself. So here's another one. One asylum applicant claims she was being persecuted in Russia because she was gay. For those out there in Oliver and Linda, that means homosexual. Okay? She told her immigration lawyer later, "I'm not gay at all. I don't even like gay people." I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just unbelievable. How about this one? Razmi Youssef was the mastermind. I want you to think about this. Remember before the Twin Towers went down in 2001? Remember the World Trade Center bombing? Listen to this. Ramzi Youssef. This is why Trump says, listen, do you remember, I was thinking when I got up this morning, those stupid judges, somebody ought to jack slap some of our judges. They keep stopping the ban where people can fly here from certain countries when they're trying to blow us up. And judges said, "No, you can't stop them. We just have to get along with people wanting to blow us up." Ramzi Youssef was the mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing and the Bajinka plot, as well as the nephew of the 9/11 architect Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. You remember him? You remember that name, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed? Ann Coulter says, poor Youssef almost didn't make it through customs. Almost didn't make it. In other words, he made it through. Not only was his own passport dubious in terms of legitimacy, in other words, it didn't look legitimate, but his traveling companion was carrying bomb manuals. Now, when they go through your stuff, when I go into Vietnam, man, they open my suitcases, right? They do it the same way on foreigners here. They go through their stuff. They go through the stuff. He's packing bomb manuals. You talk about, that guy had to be a liberal. And he also had car bomb videos and instructions on how to lie to U.S. immigration inspectors. You'd think that'd be enough to pull the guys aside and say, listen, guys, we're not too sharp, but we're sending you back. Youssef claimed asylum and was released into our country and later blew up the World Trade Center. I should repeat that, but I'm not going to do it for the sake of time. How about this? The Sofitel hotel maid, Nafissatou Diallo, falsely accused the head of the International Monetary Fund. You remember this rape? I remember that. I thought that dirty dog raped that girl, like a super rich guy. Dominique Strauss-Kahn. You remember that? And guys do that sometimes. Bill Clinton did. He liked to do that. Like he'd go to a hotel and then he would make a move on a gal, right? So this is Nafissatou Diallo. And she said the head of the International Monetary Fund, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, raped her. Diallo had been granted asylum after memorizing the tape given to her by an American immigration activist about being gang raped in Guinea. That's where she was supposedly from, Guinea. So she became an actor, basically. She memorized the lines. The gal's a total fraud. Then Amadou Diallo, same name, was all over the news after being, same last name, after being killed by, remember this? I remember this in 1999. He was killed by 4 New York City police officers. Later, we found out in his asylum application, he had claimed his parents had been murdered by the Mauritanian government. So they let him in. Amadou, remember him? And there's they had riots over Diallo. Free, justice for Diallo. They had T-shirts made. Actually, Diallo was born into a prosperous Guinean family, and his parents never were murdered. In fact, they're still alive and well. And they're suing New York taxpayers for a settlement. They want $3 million. Maybe they already got it. It's been a long time ago now. She says the crisis on the border is no ordinary asylum fraud. It's a political stunt by left-wing organization. You may have heard of this group, People Without Borders. In Spanish, it's Pueblo Sin Fronteras. People Without Borders, which believes, as its name suggests, that the USA has no right to have a border. And it has a responsibility to pay for everyone's well-being, no matter whether they need health, welfare, education, a car, Section 8 housing, whatever. This group, People Without Borders, Pueblo Sin Fronteras, this group has publicly marched hordes of Latin Americans through thousands of miles of countryside from other countries to demand entry into our country. No questions asked. Drop the borders. We owe them a life. Their life sucks down there, but we owe them a great life up here just because they're breathing. The New York Times described the horror, the very horror of it. At some border crossings, the New York Times said, migrants are being forced to wait for days or longer in Mexico. That's where they're from. When I've told you this before, I go into China and Vietnam. Right now in China, it is so difficult on the border. If you have any contraband, for instance, if you're crossing the border and you have a visa for China and you give them your passport and then they let you through and then they check your bag. If you have a couple Bibles in your bag, they will confiscate those Bibles and they will rip the visa out of your passport, which costs $140 in America, and kick you out of the country. In Vietnam, I got a visa one time from the embassy, and I wanted a multiple entry visa because I had to fly into Hanoi, then I had to leave and go back to Hong Kong, and then I had to fly back over later into Saigon. So I had a multiple entry visa. But when they sent it to me and my passport got back, it only had a single, but I paid for a multiple. So I contacted them, and they said, oh, our bad. And they said, we'll just send you a letter, because I said, I need to leave. I can't send you the passport back. They said, we'll just send you this letter, and you'll be good to go. So I went into Hanoi. I left, went back to Hong Kong, and then later was flying across and go to Saigon, and I got into immigration. I had a whole team of people with me that went right through, and they said, hey, you don't have a visa, dude. Your visa's, like, you used up your own visa a week ago. And I said, no, this letter explains it. They screwed me over up there at the embassy in, USA, the Vietnam embassy. They said, hey, I mean, this is like an official government document, different colors, seals, Asian writing, the whole thing. They said, anybody can make a letter like this, right? Right? Anybody can make a letter like this. I thought, well, anybody maybe could, but that didn't happen. I paid for this. I explained it like 2 or 3 times to nice. They were nice. Finally, they just said, listen, quit explaining it. We're giving you 2 choices. 1, get on the plane and get out of here. Go to Hong Kong, right? That'd be one choice. The other choice is dig in your pocket, pull out a bunch of cash, and go over and see that dude right over there, take your photograph, and he'll help you fill out another application, and we will get you a single entry visa and shut your mouth and go in the country. And I should have said, but I'm separated from all my kids and everything. And I was wanted to spend that money for something else. You know what they said? They said, you can go back to Hong Kong, dude. You're good to go over there, but you're not good to go in Vietnam, and we don't care whose fault it is. It ain't our fault. We're sitting here. We didn't do anything wrong. So you either get it together or get out. But Americans are just too stupid to figure this all out. So why don't people just stay in Mexico? You know, I get a kick out of all these DACA people waving all these Mexican flags. If they love Mexico, get the hell out of here. Why don't you wave it? You know, I would have more compassion if they waved an American flag and just said, you know, Mexico kicked our rear end. We couldn't make it down there. And so can you have mercy on us? Do us a solid. We love America, right? We don't want to be Mexico. We want to be American. Hell, you know, they don't do that. They say, we want to be Mexican, and we want this to be Mexico, and to hell with you white people. And in your face, up your nose, right? And you just get over it. We're going to take your stuff. You need to support us, give us free education, pay for our DACA fees, pay for our welfare, pay for our medical, and like it. And be okay with us cussing you out all the time, right? I don't know if Mexico's such a fantastic country with zero rapists. I keep running into all these Mexican dudes that want to rape special needs kids and stuff and molest them and do weird stuff. Like, hey, what do you... Down there, they just shoot your rear end if they catch you doing that stuff. Maybe if we don't want these people, we should do something like build a border. It's just a thought. I don't know. I'll give you an example. I think I got the... Oh, how about this guy? This guy is a real... he's a real catch. Let's see. Illegal alien impregnates special needs girl. Ronaldo Mora, M-O-R-A, a 41-year-old illegal alien from Mexico, has been charged by the Montgomery County Police Department for allegedly raping a 13-year-old nonverbal girl. She must have batted her eyes a few times to give consent, right? Months ago, he was supposed to be babysitting this young woman and her two other siblings. When the parents left, he took the 13-year-old in the bedroom and raped her. What a winner he is. So ICE confirmed that Mora had been living in the U.S. illegally, was previously working full-time as a cook at a Mexican restaurant in Maryland. Now, should he be convicted, the illegal alien is facing up to 60 years in prison. Once his time is served, he will be transferred to ICE for deportation from the U.S. And I'm sure he's separated from his kids in Mexico. I mean, how can we do this? You know, at the Yuba County Jail, it's full of ICE immigrants that have done their time for a crime that they committed, and now they're being held. And they all have kids scattered all over everywhere. Some of them are in the U.S., some are in Mexico. They're just all over the place, right? In fact, if you go to the non-ICE part of the jail, and there's just some locals in there, they're separated from their kids as well. There are no kids and there's no family housing in Yuba County Jail or Sutter County Jail. No family housing. Somebody took some heat by saying it was like a summer camp down there with these kids. It is. A lot of these kids coming from Mexico or wherever they came from, they never had it so good as living in detention facilities. That's what I tell the juvenile hall kids. So I had juvenile hall kids tell me this. This is interesting. Some of them living homeless at one time or in really rough places. They said, Lou, one thing about juvenile hall, he said, I really didn't mind coming here because I got 3 meals a day. I was safe. They're young kids. And I got a shower every day. And I got medical. Like I was kidding the other day when I was speaking there, that they were finishing handing out the meds, like if you have a headache or, you want to put some acne medicine on. I said, and they had a little deal there. You could pump it and get a little lotion. I said, you guys never even knew how to spell lotion before you got into juvenile hall. What's all this lotion, the concern about lotion? Like, everybody in the place wanted a little lotion. I said, I didn't even know lotion when I was a kid. Who cared about lotion? So are we out of time? Oh, yeah, we need to take a break, and we're going to come back for another 30 minutes. All right.
When I turned 18, I couldn't wait to vote. After all, voting is a privilege for all Americans, right? Then I did the math. Did you know that the northern third of California only has 3 out of 80 seats in the Assembly and 3 out of 40 seats in the Senate? Northern California has no representation, and my vote doesn't count. Splitting from California and forming the state of Jefferson is the only remedy. Please visit soj51.net for more information. Please donate now to help restore representation.
Check out the Territorial Dispatch. Papers are weekly and can be obtained free at distribution or by mail through subscription. It's the only locally owned and operated newspaper in the region. The paper is the rest of the story. And also check out the E-Territorial. It's an online version of the Territorial Dispatch which features local news and events for the Yuba Sutter, Colusa, and Nevada County areas. You'll also find daily and breaking news updates, current traffic, and weather information, along with a calendar of local events. Visit the E-Territorial at eterritorial.com.
All right, we're going to work towards wrapping this thing up today because we got a sports show coming on here at noontime. So I want to make a couple more comments about these flyers that are coming every week now from Yuba County. We're trying to figure out how we're paying for these, but, the government in the United States used to be called of the people, by the people, for the people. Now, if you want to ask a question or get some information, you have to submit a legal document that has to be perfectly drafted, otherwise they'll reject it, called a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. And then you have to wait a minimum of 10 days for the government to decide they want to give you the bit of information. Now, they don't have to go through a FOIA with me. Like I just told them, instead of 664 square miles, it's 644 square miles in the county of Yuba. Because the argument was, in this big 8.5 by 11 double-sided, glossy, multicolored cardstock flyer that went probably to every household and P.O. box. I get multiple copies myself. I'm collecting these at my house. I think there might be a collector's item someday. It says, did you know that only 25 sheriff's deputies currently patrol 664, it's 44, square miles of Yuba County, and emergency response times can take up to 50 minutes in some areas? Well, I want you to think about it. Some of you that are listening from another city may think, whoa, that's a high response. I got 3 or 4 minutes from my fire department. Well, Yuba County is a lot of rural areas. Some of those areas are gravel roads, dirt roads, way up in the boondocks, and it just takes that long to get there. So this isn't because there's necessarily a shortage of deputies. Are there a shortage of deputies compared to a few years ago? No question about it. And there's reasons for that, and the government is the problem. Now, that's one. Did you know? And they told that, which is, it's not telling the whole truth, nothing but the truth and the truth. So help you God. It's just picking and choosing parts of truth, right? It's like somebody telling you a story, but they're not telling you the whole story, so they mislead you, right? Then it says, did you know 2 sheriff's deputies were recently ambushed at an illegal outdoor marijuana grow? That's true. Cops are getting ambushed in every city in the country, or rural. And cops are getting ambushed. That doesn't necessarily mean they're short of money. You had 2 cops responding to an incident, which is typical, and they got in a shootout, which is more and more common. The budget problem did not cause those deputies to get shot. What did create a problem in the foothills was the fact that Buck Weckman, who's a retired forestry firefighter, kept asking for a state of emergency to be declared to get more resources from the state because we had the cartels operating in the Yuba County foothills, and the supervisors ignored him. Hello? Number 3. Let me skip to number 4 because, or maybe number 5, because these are things that aren't true, or they're skirting the truth on this county thing signed by Robert Bendorf. So it says some fire districts rely entirely on volunteers. Now, this is totally a deceptive statement. And I'm going to look this up when I get off the air, but I'm just operating from memory, which at my age is really a risky business. But I believe, I read this statistic some time ago, that some 70% of fire districts are operated by volunteers in the United States. Said a different way, the concept of a fully paid department is a rare idea. Now, I remember when Yuba City Fire Department was endorsing, because they're all paid and part of the fire union, and I like them. They're nice guys and gals, but they were endorsing a concept by the union of every fire department in the United States being mandated to become a union fire department. Well, the reason they like that is because that's more union dues, right? And it's a bigger organization. But the state that some fire departments rely entirely on volunteers, the suggestion is that you paying an extra 1% sales tax is going to fund all these fire departments. That's just a lie. That's disingenuous. That's suggesting and to you assume something that is absolutely false. There's nothing in a 1% sales tax increase in Yuba County that will fund all the fire departments with paid firefighters. That's BS. It's BS on the size of the county. It's BS that a shortage of funds caused 2 deputies to be shot. That was just a jerk that shot 2 deputies. That can happen with 100 deputies running around. People are nutso out there today, if you haven't caught on. Yuba County handles up to 40,000 calls to 911 for deputies, for 911 for sheriff's deputies, fires, and emergencies each year. So what? It's busy. If you go to any city, any county, so what? That may be not so many. That could be a lot. That could be average. So what's the point? Let me read you on. It says, Dear Neighbor. Down here it says, residents have indicated from this survey, remember I did the fraudulent, so I wrote an article for the Territorial Dispatch about the fraudulent survey they sent out. It says, residents have indicated the following priorities are important to them. Here's one priority: maintaining 9/11 response times for medical emergencies and fires. Did you know that response times for medical emergencies, let me back up. When you call 911, you say, my husband's having a heart attack, or my husband cut himself with a knife, or he fell off the roof. That when you call 911, the law enforcement does not respond on a typical medical emergency unless somebody shot somebody. The people that respond in Yuba Sutter counties is bi-county ambulance and a fire department. The fire department may be there really quick or not so quick, depending on if you're out there in the middle of nowhere, out of Slombodia in Yuba County, up there where they have the dueling banjo trailer courts. And so once upon a time, fire departments, being called fire departments, they didn't respond to medical aids. Did you know that? But the fire unions came up with this amazing idea. They said, we can make more money if we would respond not only to fires, but we'd respond to medical calls. Because then we are making more use of ourselves, and we could say, hey, without us, you're going to drop dead. But before that, the only people that respond to medical calls would be an ambulance. Not so bad, right? In fact, it may get to where we can't afford. We have to cut the cost of firefighters and just go back to ambulances responding, right? So when they say maintain 9/11 response times for medical emergencies and fires, adding a 1% sales tax does not change the response times for a medical emergency one bit for Pike County Ambulance. Pike County Ambulance has a certain amount of ambulances that are stage or they post. That means they have spots around the counties, Yuba and Sutter, where they ambulance sits and waits for dispatch, and they want to be close to that area of the county. So the Pike County Ambulance is not a government entity. It's a private business that contracts with the government to respond to 911 calls, and they have an agreement that they'll respond in a certain amount of time. Changing the sales tax does not change the response times for this ambulance company. This statement, that's why I say this survey was fraudulent, and it misinforms and confuses people on what the impact of a 1% sales tax or no 1% increase in sales tax will mean. In fact, this 1% sales tax is not going to fund fire departments to have paid personnel. It's not going to do that. That's why this whole fiasco with Oliver's Public Utility District scamming the fire contract from Wheatland Fire District was all about trying to stabilize the Oliver's Fire Department with future casino proceeds, because the people of Oliver's refused to fund the fire department any more than it's funded now. They have a couple paid positions out there at Oliver's, and they've tried to have more paid positions, but the people of Oliver's do not want to pay for that. The property owners do not want to be assessed per parcel to pay for a fully funded fire department. That's why they have a lesser operation out there than they could have, because the people didn't want that. They've had that opportunity. But now Mary Jane Griego, who's a former supervisor and was booted off because people got tired of her baloney, she's now got her, just like Brent Hasty got himself back onto the California Water, or the Yuba County Water Agency once he got off the board of supervisors, to dip into that public cash again. Mary Jane's now on the Oliver's Public Utility District because she's getting cashed out by the casino people, the Indians, or indigenous people, or Native Americans, whatever you want to call them. So she's getting her hand in the till over there, and she's cutting a deal with them by saying, hey, we don't have to follow the rules and regulations of LAFCO. That's a administrative organization that helps govern who does what where in the county. We don't have to follow those protocols. We don't have to follow utilizing Wheatland Fire Department because the casino is going to be a Wheatland. We could just blow that right off. So this whole concept here of this, on this report back to our community. Oh, yeah, you're reporting. You know, these are all scams, these flyers from Garamendi, Gallagher. They're all just a way to hustle more money from you. That's it. They say, oh, we really want to know your feelings. They don't give a crap about your feelings. Not at all. All they want is to, they justify somebody else, the taxpayer, paying for that mailing to remind you of how wonderful they are. I don't care what politician is, Democrat, Republican, Communist, they're all the same. Or county administrator. I'm waiting to see how long some folks out here in South County filed a Freedom of Information Act regarding where all the money's coming from to pay for all these flyers coming out, and they're waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting for the answer. You know what Yuba County said? Well, you would think that if you had a question about some operation in the county, you could just ask the department head and they would be kind enough knowing that they're just a citizen just like you, that they just be transparent and kind enough and honest enough, just tell you the answer over the phone or in person. But no. We can't do that because you're too stupid out there. You're just a citizen. Keep your head down, keep paying your taxes, and keep your mouth shut. Quit complaining. Or we'll boycott your business. That's what the county does. They boycott business. Did you know that? They pick winners and losers. It's called crony capitalism. So if they don't like your business, if you're not in line with the county, then they'll pay actually more money to use somebody else. It's not their money. It's not the department head's money. It's like the taxpayers' money. And they punish you with your own tax dollars by paying them somewhere else and not doing business with you because you don't agree with them. So to say maintain 9/11 responses, 911 responses, is not the truth. Medical emergencies by county ambulance will respond just like they've always responded, whether you pay for a new tax or not. In fact, for these fire departments, they're probably going to be the same. The money probably going to go all to the sheriff's department, and they don't respond to 911 responses unless it's an act of violence or a major car crash or something. They don't do that anymore. Too busy. They're too busy. Back when I started becoming a chaplain back in the early 90s, it wasn't unusual for Yuba City police to respond to CPR in progress. It had nothing to do with police. It was just an intense situation, so they thought they'd help out. But when things got really busy, they just don't come unless it's a suicide or a domestic disturbance or people threatening stuff or whatever. So this card is just not, it's not forthright, it's not transparent, it's not accurate. They said thank you to nearly 1,000 residents who have provided feedback. That's out of 72,000 residents. Protecting and maintaining fire protection services. I don't know how much money is going to be even available, this 1% to fire protection services. The fact is, I can pretty much guarantee they are not going to finance any fully funded, paid firefighter fire services in this county that have been volunteer for all these years. And to say that some fire departments rely entirely on volunteers, that's the rule in the United States. What are you saying, that now everybody should raise taxes in every county in the United States to fully fund people can't afford to do that. I was looking at Gridley law enforcement. Man, those dudes up there are making, and I think it's true down here in Yuba City, Marysville, guys are making 150, 160, and ladies, 150, 40, 60, $80,000, $180,000 to be in law enforcement. At some point, the city just can't afford that. They want law enforcement. Maybe we ought to just hire private entities where we don't have any pensions and you just have a private fire department, a private law enforcement. Just take elite universal security, strap some guns, and deputize those dudes as a private law enforcement. Oh shoot, man, we're out of time. The party's over. Hey, we'll be back. Are we going to be live, or what are we doing next week? Wiki says we're going to have another date. We're recording again. We're going to come back and be live next week. Thanks for listening. The sports guys are coming on, so pay attention here, and you might learn how to bet on a game, make $100 or something. All right, see you later.